So let me introduce our speaker over here, our next speaker, and she comes to us from New York City, and her name is Judith Glaser. She spoke to us this morning. She is a best-selling author and an executive coach. She is an author of 7 business books, including her newest bestseller, Conversational Intelligence, How Great Leaders Build Trust and Get Ordinary Results. It was selected by Inc. magazine as one of the top 5 trends in business in 2016. She works with CEOs and their teams to elevate levels of engagement, collaboration, and innovation to improve performance. She also serves as an adjunct professor at the Wharton School, which is Ralph School, probably the best business school in the United States today, and visiting guest speaker at Harvard, MIT, University of Chicago, New York University, and others. So I bring you Judith Glaser.
So now I get to meet the other half of all of you. But the room is really full. We must have, what, 800 people here? Yeah? Yeah? It's hard to go around and talk to each of you. That's my inclination, is touching each person's mind and heart with something that can help you, something that can help you realize how good you are, to help you bring more of that goodness to the world around you in spite of the challenges that we all face in what's happening in the world today. It's important for me to get to know you, and again, I would do it as my little discovery interviews. What's your name?
Marilyn.
What's your name?
Kara.
Do you know each other?
Yes.
Oh, good. You don't have to shake hands. But what I'd like to do is, I'd like to ask you, how many of you have had the opportunity to get some type of health recommendations or guidance, or even being in the Baptist healthcare system yourself? How many of you, please stand up if you've had that opportunity to experience what other people experience when they come here. So please stand up. Whoa, take a look around the room. Take a look around the room. Now, in addition to those of you who are standing up, please stand up if you've brought a family member here, if they've also come. If you haven't stood up, and raise your hand if you in fact have had family members, so we can again see how broad and wide your exposure is to being on the other side. And how about friends and recommended friends additionally, right? Almost the whole room, if not the whole room, is standing up. So you know your world inside and out. And what we want to do is talk about how to continue to elevate the value that you bring to the world. Look at all the awards that you had before that you were just hearing. It's just an incredible thing what you're doing to the world. And so my love and my job is to come and talk to organizations and help them realize, number one, how good they are, what value they brought, and then how to expand that, how to get to the next level of greatness. And I actually want to do this through a story, actually my story. How many of you remember what you were doing on September 11th, 2001? Raise your hand if you remember. Let me do it the other way. Put your hands down. Is there anybody that doesn't remember what you were doing that day? It looks like the whole world was talking to each other in one form or another. And it was at that moment, I got off the elevator to have my visit with the oncologist that was to then tell me what type of cancer I had. And so exactly at the same time, a woman got off the elevator and she had her phone and she was saying, what? A plane? No, that's impossible. What was that bad? I mean, whose plane? And I just saw her, the World Trade Center, and I got into the waiting room. It had a square shape with chairs around it. Everyone was on the phone talking to a family member. Where are you? Are you okay? Okay. I realized that while the world was being attacked, my body was being attacked. And I went into the waiting room, waiting for my doctor, and she came in and she said, our phones are out. We wanted to talk to the people, the technicians, so we're getting faxes to learn what I need to be talking to you about today. And the first page came through and she said, it's only 0.9 centimeters, so that's good news. And then the second page came in 20 minutes later, and I'm sitting there trying to look out the window, seeing the smoke in New York City and what was going on and trying to make sense of that and where my family was. And then the second page came in. And she said, I thought that maybe we could do it with just radiation, but it looks like you have stage 4 cancer, breast cancer. And I digested that as she went back out to take care of other patients and wait for the next page to come in. And the next page said, it appears that there might be some invasion of cancer into your bones. And so I went from here, it's going to be okay, to here, not knowing what my day, my week, my next month was going to be about. My mother was diagnosed with cancer when I was 11 and a half. She had 5 types of cancer. She lived for 10 years. We had corbiacin in the refrigerator my father injected. This is an experimental drug. It's serum from horses, dead horses, that give a cure for cancer, and that didn't work. And she had, it went throughout her whole body, basically. And so I got to see, and I always thought, maybe I'll fight it. I'll figure it out how to fight it. It's in my family. Well, I did get my first douse of what it was like to have chemo and lose your hair and get chemo brain. How many of you have heard about chemo brain? You lose all sorts of things, and I couldn't organize very well. I remember doing knitting and crocheting, trying to bring back my powers. And anyway, I went through this, and I was fine after that. And I had 15 years or 14 years of good, and I kept saying, maybe my life won't be like my mother's. And then I found both of my little tiny cancers, and I put my hand, I was laying outside, and I woke up and I felt a hot burning sensation here, and I found another cancer. And it was in my breast. And so I went to the doctor, and they said, okay, this time we do a double mastectomy, and I said, fine. And I went through the process, and I thought, I'm tough, I'm gonna handle this. I ended up looking, saying, well, look, you got something else here that you didn't have before, have fun. And then it didn't heal. And I had a pain that was under here that was so bad, I couldn't sleep in my own bed because it wasn't the right feel. And I went into my daughter's room, which had a harder bed, and for 2 weeks, the pain was still there. And I had somebody that told me you have to put Knox around here and rub it with all sorts of things. And this is a Greek recipe for health. Well, that didn't work. And I woke up Saturday morning and I said, Rich, we're going to the hospital. You've got to put me in. I don't know what this is, but I'm crying of pain. And I went into the hospital, and here's where some of the miracles happened for me. The person who was the doctor on call wasn't there, and it was replaced by somebody that works in the gastrointestinal area, thank God. And he looked at me and he went over and he said, did you know you have jaundice? I said, no. I thought I had weight loss. All of a sudden he said, no. There's something going on here. He said, do you have red dots on your chest? And I said, I did, but I went to a dermatologist and they gave me this great cream. I thought I'm being great, doing it all right. And he said, hang on, do you have orange urine? And I said, yeah, it did turn more orange. I noticed that. And he said, and white bowel movements? And I said, how do you know that? He said, I have to operate on you today. You've already lost a lot of weight. You're not digesting food right. There's something going on, and I have to put a stent in. I said, fine. He had all his residents around, and we were all saying, great observation. I figured it's little. It didn't turn out to be little. When he went inside, this was side symptoms. When he went inside, he turned his scope around, and he identified a 5-centimeter tumor wrapped around my pancreas that was in a place that was inoperable. There's a Whipple operation where you can take it off, but I was not a Whipple candidate. And he said, and this is the hardest thing that happened. He took me into a room with my family. They asked my friends to leave. And he said to me, you have either 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years to live. I said, is that how it works? He said, only 4% of people live from pancreatic cancer, and you have a huge tumor in a bad place. And my daughter remembers that minute by saying, I never hated anyone before in my life like I hated that doctor. What right did he have doing that to our family? And so my daughter, who was a lawyer, went on the web and found Whipple groups and groups of pancreatic cancer patients that live forever, and we started something in our family where it was all about, what is this here to teach me? What is this here to teach us? I have a friend who's a doctor. She became a doctor at 50. She went to Yale and got an MD degree. And she sat with me every week to go over what I was eating, what I was doing, how I was feeling. I had people surrounding me that had love pouring out. My grandson realized at the age of 4 that maybe something was really bad with Mama Judy. And he asked, and I heard him say, my dog had just died. And he said, is Mama Judy going to die like Kasha? So we lived through, I lost 45 pounds. I was 1/3 less in my body weight. I couldn't walk up steps. I didn't eat. I drank Ensure and booster things that my husband made with the stuff that my son, who's an athlete, takes. And beside all of this, and Lil knows that, where's Lil? I had been given an opportunity to bring conversational intelligence around the world. And at the same time that I was going through this, I was reaching, the first group was 12,500 coaches around the world, of which 1,000 signed up to work with me. Lil was in that group, and I told the group the first day we started that I'm going through something and I may not be here. I didn't know whether the doctor's words were true or not. And I said, I just want you to know that I want to do this with all of you. And I didn't know where to go from that. I mean, if you're standing on an edge, how do you know what to say? In the back room, we were going to tape everything, and it was a year long, and who knew what was going to happen? The next time we met, one of the women said, we started prayer groups. There were 65 countries. We started prayer groups in every country. We're all going to start to pray for you at the same time. So if I look back and say, why am I still here? I'm still here, first of all, because I had a great doctor who knew what to do, and his care and tenderness, I felt so deeply. I had one other doctor when I had cancer, and I remember, stand up for a second, when I got the diagnosis from Rasha Simmons, and she walked me down the hall to meet my husband again, she put her hand here, and I felt so cared for. There was no space between me and the care I was going to get, and that made all the difference in the world. Thank you. So, conversational intelligence is teaching me that it's not just the words we speak to each other, it's the way we create a connection, and that we now know that when we stand within 10 feet of another human being, our hearts connect. And so if we're in an upset, angry, fearful mode, our heart is feeling that, and the message that's going to the other person is fear. If we decide that we're going to make a choice and connect with that person, it's a whole different energy that comes from our heart, and it's a connection energy. We now know that. In fact, I'd like you to do an exercise. I'd like you to turn to the person next to you, and I want you to, may I use you as an example? You reach out, but look at them in the eyes first. Get a second of eyes. Did you feel it in your heart? Yeah? You do. You're going to feel it. You're going to be so good at this. You're already good. You're going to be so good at this. Wait a minute. Hold it. Shh. Look at this oxytocin that's just spewing all over the room. Hang on, guys. You do a handshake as well, but don't do one of these quick, you know how thing go and you're out of here. I want you to look in their eye and feel the connection. And then I want you, shh. You have to hear the good part, okay? Then I want you to share something that you've never shared before with anybody. Don't think about it. Just do it. Turn to the partner next to you. Eye connect, hand connect, and then share something you've never shared before. Go ahead. Oh, and 3 people can work together. One of you can be the observer, okay? Uh-oh, no phones. No phones. Are you sharing with your telephone? Oh, you did? Okay. How did it feel? You sure? Okay, everybody. Shh. I'd like you to finish up. Shh. You must have done this kind of stuff before. I don't usually get everybody getting so quiet so fast. So, anybody notice anything about how you felt during that interchange, that connection with somebody else? Anybody speak up? Every answer is right. Just anything that you noticed about yourself, about the conversation, anything. I know that you just had something you wanted to say.
No.
No? Sure? Doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. Take a breath. Did they tell you before you get your pinch? You know, just take a breath and it won't hurt. Take a breath. Anything that you noticed, anything that felt good, anything that you don't have to share what you talked about. It's not giving your secrets away. Did you feel any chemical shift at all? Did you notice anything like that?
Well, we're friends, and I've known him for 6 years, so yeah.
That was easy?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you know somebody, it's easy. How about people that don't know each other, or did you all sit next to friends? Yes, you all sat next to friends. Okay, but did you notice anything? Did you anybody observe people sitting in, leaning in, doing anything different? If you don't want to raise your hand, then you're going to come into our next class on conversational intelligence. You know, this is a recruiting moment. What we notice is that people that don't know each other who say, "You want me to share something I've never shared with anybody?" It's impossible. And then they do it. And then they feel a huge connection to someone. It wasn't so hard. So part of what we do as human beings is it's difficult to share things that we think might make us look bad in the eyes of other people, or something that we don't want to be transparent about because we think, again, that there'll be some implications. Yet what we find out is when human beings make these connections, these deep connections, first of all, we activate a lot of oxytocin. How many of you know what oxytocin is? Okay, it's a hormone and a transmitter. It's the most frequently produced hormone in the body. It used to be connected with women who breastfeed, but it turns out that men and women have it. And when you have more oxytocin versus cortisol, which is a fear hormone, which when it gets to the lower brain, it starts to have us pull away from other human beings, not move towards. And so we now know that when human beings have a connection that's not filtered by judgment, that they activate a part of the brain that's called the prefrontal cortex and the heart, and when the two work together, you have access to wisdom, insight, empathy, foresight, integrity. The good things that I saw up on the list about you come from being connected with other human beings and having that kind of connection be one from heart as well as brain. Not this part. This is where we know everything. This is where we got smart in school and got rewarded and good grades, and then we felt so good when we got our A's. We got a lot of dopamine, and so we want to keep reproducing this part. But a lot of the things that I heard about who you are as human beings here are that you have a lot more of that oxytocin potential already working to your benefit. And when human beings feel that, their life changes. When I was going through my chemo treatments, I had to go to the hospital and sign in, or when I had my scans of my body to see what was going on. I remember sitting in the waiting room and having someone come over and say, "Judith, you've been here before. I remember that," and they would say something about what happened last time that made me feel good. "And you wanted a warm blanket. Can I get you a blanket again?" Oh, did that feel good. Knowing that I was going to go in for a scan that could determine whether I was getting better or not. How comfortable I felt with that kind of care. So a lot of conversational intelligence is about chemistry. It's about how I can influence your chemistry in a way that has you feel comfortable and good about me being there. And it's those memories that stay with us when we feel somebody really cares. How many can remember a moment in your life where you felt a moment of contact with someone that stayed with you forever? How many of you have had anything like that? Yeah. And I hope you have more. We now know that when human beings meet someone, there's a place in their brain that has the name of that person on the brain somehow. And then every time you interact with them, another memory gets connected to that spot. Now, how in the world could doctors know that, right? So they put these things called fMRI equipment on their head, and they know what questions to ask. They pre-plan the questions. And in this particular case, this guy just loved Jodie Foster. All of you know Jodie Foster, right, from the movies? Loved her. And so they planted Jodie Foster questions inside the interview. And every time they mentioned Jodie Foster, inside the brain, they could see it go like that. It was like lighting up. So now we know that every time you interact with a colleague or a friend or a patient or anyone, there's a collection of experiences that map to either feel good or feel bad. And the next time you go to meet with that person, if you've just had a fight, and that will still be lingering with a lot of cortisol, that person really thinks about, I'm going to meet with that person again. Oh, God, that was such a horrible thing. What do I have to do? Maybe I shouldn't share anything because they took something that I told them and shared it with someone else. I'm going to lock down. How many of you have had that where right? It could be family members. It could be anything or anyone. So what we've been studying is, and what I've been hopefully creating what I call a revolution, is to develop deeper awareness of the impact that we have on others. I'm going to spend a little time with you, and maybe Lil and I can even have a little time for an exercise, if we can figure out how to fit it in our time frame. Let me just give you an update on where I am with my cancer. I am in that 4% that have figured out a way to stay alive. It's kind of nice to say the doctor was wrong. I had my last scan a couple days ago, and I started out, for those of you who know it, I had cancer markers that were around 600. It's C19-9, and the doctor didn't understand. He said I was this miracle patient, and by the way, one of my friends gave me this scarf that says miracles. She had it made for me, because in 3 months being on chemo, and you know what chemo can do, within 3 months my chemo markers went from 600 down to normal the first time. Now that's not my whole story, but to drop in 3 months, the doctor said he has people with 18 treatments that still don't have recovery, healthy recovery. And everything was great. And then I went through a stress period, and I guess pancreatic cancer is extremely subject to stress. And so I went up again and discovered that, well, the pancreatic tumor was inactive, that I now had lung cancer. And that was not so long ago. And so we went back on chemo for a while, but it turns out that I have a rejection of chemo. There's some chemistry in it, some metals in it that I didn't do well on. And so they put me on an experimental drug, which didn't work either. I'm getting close to the end. And so my doctor said, look, actually he put me in the hospital. My immune system was down. I needed another stent replacement. They didn't know if I was going to make it. So within like a month and a half or 2 months ago, I was not walking like I'm walking now. I was in the hospital for a week. They pumped up my immune system. They put in a stent that was permanent, could never be changed, and sent me home. And while I was still doing these beautiful conversations with 1,000 coaches around the world, with no chemo, with no experimental drugs, and Lil will tell you, because she was part of our group, we met hours every month. Once I realized that the interaction dynamics between human beings are so powerful that it can turn on and off genes, I said, I'm going to have the conversations that turn on the good genes in my body, and I'm going to make it. And so I spent hours and hours every month talking to my colleagues about the good things that were happening, and I wanted their stories of how they had changed the world with conversational intelligence, and we recorded their stories, and it was like something amazing. And my doctor, when I went back to the office, said, "Your chemo markers have dropped again, like they did the first time, but you're not on chemo." And I said, "That's what I was trying to tell you." I said, "I have these people that are praying around the world. We're having great conversations." And in the first time he said, "I'm a doctor. I don't believe in those things." And the second time he said, with a big smile on his face, maybe this is something I should be studying too." And so, again, here I am. The chemo markers are just at normal right now. Every time I look at my chart, I have a smile on my face. I didn't do this alone. I did it with other people. And that's what I wanted to bring as a message as we go into looking at conversational intelligence, that your interaction dynamics make a difference. You might not be able to see the chemistry shift, but you're having an impact with every conversation. And once you know what the formula is, once you know what causes cortisol, cortisol could be everything from turning my back when I'm sitting next to you because I don't like what you're saying. And we see that, right? It's rejection. Human beings don't do well with rejection. It means looking down at someone. It means setting a table, not a circular table like this, but with two big ends where two people have to fight and argue about their point of view. And it automatically happens. The people that are at the head we're hardwired for that. And so we start to go into behaviors that match our environment. So noticing, how do you set up an environment like this where people can talk and connect? What do you do at home when you wake up to prime the day? Do you look in the mirror and say, how many bad conversations can I start today? How many people can I get crazy? What did you just think? I just saw, no, you have to share. You didn't, I know you didn't say anything, it was on your face.
No.
So what I'm gonna talk to you about and open your eyes about, I want you to start making the invisible visible. I want you to start to notice the physical things around you from the way people tilt their eyes. Do you know when you see people scratching their head back here when you're talking, it means that they don't believe what you're saying? I don't know if you've ever noticed that. Did you ever notice that? Yeah. They may not be telling you, but that's what they're thinking. Yeah. Have you ever noticed when people speak out and they're very proud of what they do, that they go like this? Have you ever noticed that one? Yes? No? Now you have to notice these things. These are important, right? When somebody is talking to somebody else and they kind of get a glaze, the listener gets a glaze, they're gone, right? You're not connecting, right? So noticing the nonverbals to noticing the verbals is part of what conversational intelligence is all about. We now have 2,250 people that have gone through our program from 75 countries, telling me stories about Parliament and how they're helping Parliament. Countries, Trinidad and Tobago, states, Delaware. These are the tools that we've tested out in Dubai, China, South America, Japan, Argentina, Spain, Mexico, and I can go on and on and on. Even in Dubai, which surprised me, when we had 450 people with their headsets on, being translated for what I was saying, talking about the science, and I was told the people in the front row, there's a guy who was in the front row, he's in the top 100 people that are important in Dubai. If he raises his hand, you have to respond. And so I was talking about all the chemistry and everything, and he raised his hand, I went, oh my God. Did they have guns when they're gonna, you know? And he said, roll back your slides, and I rolled it back, and he said, power. What do you mean by leadership power? And I had just talked about how sometimes leaders, without realizing it, put their heads in the ground because they don't see everything that's going on around them. And people get frightened to talk to them, and so they don't hear what's important. And you have these silos, or you have places where people aren't transparent because they're frightened about if they say something that will hurt anybody in the company, that it's not a good thing. And I said, I rolled it back and I said, every company falls into that when they go through changes. Every leader questions how much they need to know to be successful as a leader. I said, but if people just talk about it and become transparent about what are the rules of the game, how do we work together to support each other? What do you need more of from me? What can I do to help you? All of a sudden, there's a place in the brain when people ask, how can I help you? It's called compassion. It's not just empathy. Empathy is when human beings connect and I say, what do we say when we have empathy for someone? I feel your pain, right? Yeah, sorry to hear that, and I feel your pain. And what that's doing is actually giving us their pain, and our body now has their pain, and they have the pain. So when you think about what you can do with your patients or the people that you serve or your colleagues, don't stop at, I feel your pain, but say, how can I help? There have been studies over and over again to see what happens when human beings ask to help another human being. And they've noticed that the brain automatically somehow lowers the cortisol, that it elevates oxytocin higher than the cortisol that is the problem, overshadows it, and enables people then to go back to connecting. So I want to leave you with some things that you can do in practice with each other, and I want you to notice how your environment shifts as a result of it. Going in your offices and not talking when you have pain isn't as helpful to the body, to give you strength, to build your immune system, to handle the challenges that you all need to handle. So, Lil, how much, do we have any time? 1 minute? Yeah, we have 1 minute. 4 minutes, actually. All of you have these sheets of paper inside of your packages. I want you to take a look at the first one that looks like this. It's a matrix. And I want you to start noticing the quality of conversations in your workplace, okay? It looks like this one. It's the matrix, okay? If I were only going to talk with you in level 1, which is the first transactional conversations, our conversations might look like this. So, how many children do you have? 2. That's really nice. What's the weather like in your state?
Very sunny.
Very, very funny?
Sunny.
Sunny, very sunny. You know, how many kids do you have? 2. Okay, that's called transactional. When you ask people questions and there's not a give and take of questions and answers that elevate to curiosity and discovery, that's level 1. We all do it every day. You go into meetings. Let me check with you. Do you have this on your paper? Yeah, I do too. Okay, we're on the same page. But that's level 1. As you go up to the next level, level 2, you engage different parts of the brain with more limbic brain, which is inside the center. It's the emotional brain. And your questions shift. You always have give and take, push and pull, ask and tell. Ask and tell is transactional because that's how we grow each other's brains, by interacting with each other, the interaction dynamics. If you leave a child, they found a little girl who had been accepted by the wolves. She didn't have interaction dynamics. Her brain didn't grow, it shrunk. We've been studying this for a long time. Interaction dynamics help your brain grow, and the basic is level 1, transactional. Level 2, positional. It's when I have a point of view, and I want to influence you about it. I think that what you need to do is to add $20,000 to your budget, and you're going to be able to add that extra goal that we had. Do you agree?
No, I disagree.
You disagree. Why? It's you're wrong before you even start. All right? That's the bad part of positional, where we have a point of view that's so strong, we literally stop listening and we wait to interject what we want to say. Conversational intelligence is listening is different. It's listening to connect, not judge or reject. And when you do that with another human being, their brain starts to open up, their willingness to share, to be a good partner, all of that starts to happen. You may not see it, but you'll start to feel it. Positional is number 2. Number 3 is transformational. Co-creating, making a space where people don't feel judged, where you can bring your caring and candor and courage to the table and have conversations about what's important and how we need to interact with each other in order to create a healthy workplace. We now know that workplaces that live healthy, level 1, level 2, level 3, where we're not stuck in just the push side, The push side is tell, sell, yell in level 1, or addicted to being right. How many of you know somebody that's so addicted to being right that you just, yeah. Nobody? Wow. Let's try it. Let's try it with hands. You can close your eyes so nobody sees you and just put your hand up if you've experienced addicted to being right in your life, okay? Thank you for your honesty and transparency. Elevating transparency is part of building trust with human beings. Putting relationship before task is another part of building trust. Understanding somebody else's reality, standing under their reality. It's not listening to understand, it's listening to understand their reality. I'm spelling the word trust. That's another one of the sheets that you have here that you're going to be able to use in workshops moving forward. The S is shared success, not just my success, but our success. And T is truth-telling. When you sense that there's a gap between us, step in and let's talk about it. Don't go away and get pissed off about me not being what you wanted me to be. Let's talk about it, right? Did I read your mind? No. I guess it was just the look on your face. So I know I only have like a half a second left. There was a leader that I worked with. He thought he was a best practice leader. He picked me to be his coach of 13 coaches, and when I asked him why, he said, because you didn't make me wrong, you said, I'll work with you, we'll go on a journey together and see what it takes to be even a better leader. You're already best practice, let's go to the next level. And we spent a couple months together. He had put somebody in the hospital with an almost heart attack who was willing to give up 25 years of his pension to leave this leader. That's how horrible the experience was. What the leader was doing was he was all on the tell mode. Let me tell you what you have to go home and study. By the way, work this weekend so you can come in and we'll talk about it. He thought he was doing great things in developing his people. He was killing his people. After 3 weeks of him telling me how great he was, I said, I want you to do one experiment. I want you to have a meeting and ask people to send you their ideas. He said, ask, but I already know what I want to put on the agenda. No, there's a new word in your vocabulary. It's called ask. It's small, 3 letters. I just ask them what they want, and we put it on. And I said, now we'll have the meeting, and all I want you to do is ask again. And he asked what else they want to talk about. What's your idea? I haven't heard from you. Tell me more about this. Believe it or not, it was a pattern he didn't even know, nor did he know its impact. Next day, I got a call from everybody on the team saying, what did you give my boss to drink? And that's how we came up with the word conversational cocktails. And so when you go back to work, notice the cocktails amongst people. Are you celebrating each other, or are you just celebrating my success? Take a look. Those little patterns make a difference. I know that you'll work with Lil, you'll work with other people who are on the team, you'll learn more. Know that if you go up the ladder of conclusions, which is the other picture, you no longer hear other people's words and ideas and interests because you're so strongly on your own ideas. Now, I know that's not you in the room. You're not like everybody else. You're special. You are special, and you have a potential here that's extraordinary. So go home and do your experiments. Be mentors of an experiment. See what difference it makes. I can guarantee you, if I opened up a channel and listened to you over the next month, I say do a 30-day experiment, I would be hearing extraordinary things because I've learned how smart you are, and I learned how much you care. Doing some of these experiments are life-changing. Do it with your family, do it with your friends, and see what happens. I'm so thrilled to have spent some time with you today. I just think you're incredible and want to be able to hear the good news about how you're continuing to grow, that we all have challenges around us, and the people that build their DNA for handling those challenges together are the ones that live longer. So if you have a desire to have your life after life be present with that, which I'm planning to be a centenarian, which is 100 years, and I only have 30 left to go. Pretty amazing. I wish you the best of health, of love, of caring. I know the more that you bring that into your life, the more every day will change for the benefit of you and others. So thank you for having me share time with you.